6 in the morning. The alarm goes off in a studio apartment barely big enough for a bed and a desk. He splashes water on his face at a cracked bathroom sink, the kind of bathroom that came with the apartment and has never been updated. Breakfast is toast, eaten standing at the counter while checking his bank balance on his phone. $380. No umbrella, no car. He pulls his hood up and walks to the bus stop in the rain like he does every weekday. His job is stocking shelves at a hardware store. Nothing glamorous, but the schedule is steady and the paycheck clears on time. A coworker named Maya shows everyone her new phone on break, the one she just financed over 24 months. He nods politely and says nothing about his own. Lunch is a sandwich he packed that morning, eaten while 2 other coworkers order food delivery to the break room. After his shift ends, instead of going straight home, he stops at a small coffee shop near the bus stop, the same one he stops at most rainy days. He orders the cheapest drink on the menu and sits by the window, watching the rain run down the glass. He pulls out a cheap spiral notebook, the kind sold 3 for $1, and starts sketching. Not doodles, a plan. A small house icon. A clock. A simple chart that climbs upward. At the bottom of the page, he writes a number he wants to see someday. Then he closes the notebook and tucks it into his jacket. He walks home in the same rain he walked through that morning. Nobody on that street has any idea what just got written down a few minutes ago. 4 years later, Saturday mornings start at 5:30, not because anyone is making him, but because he picked up a second job pulling weekend shifts at a coffee shop. At the end of the shift he counts his tips at a back table, mostly 1s and 5s, and adds the total straight into a savings app on his phone. His friend Derek calls about a concert that weekend. Good seats, $120 each. He says he'll pass this time. Derek teases him a little, calls him boring with his money. He laughs it off and changes the subject. That night he sits at a cluttered desk with an energy drink can and a half-eaten protein bar, setting up an automatic transfer so the saving happens whether he remembers to do it or not. He opens the same worn notebook from years ago and writes out every number with total honesty. Rent $850, groceries $400, a small debt payment, and whatever is left into savings. A friend's birthday dinner comes up at a nice restaurant downtown. He shows up for cake and conversation, then quietly orders water instead of a meal. Back home that night, instant ramen on the stove, the same dinner he's had 100 times this year. He checks his banking app one more time before bed, the way he does most nights, just to watch the number move. 4 years of nights almost exactly like this one have turned $380 into $12,400. Nobody at his job, nobody at that birthday dinner, nobody on the bus has noticed a single dollar of it. Walking home from work one evening, a billboard glows overhead advertising a premium credit card. The words promise that wealth is just a swipe away. On one corner sits a luxury car dealership, bright lights bouncing off polished hoods. On the other corner, a plain community bank with its lights already off for the night. His friend Derek just bought a brand new SUV and has been talking about it nonstop. He's actually parked outside the dealership right now, showing it off to a couple of guys from the gym. He has $58,000 saved at this point, enough that the down payment wouldn't even hurt. For about 30 seconds, it's genuinely tempting. Derek waves him over, asks if he wants to come look at trucks this weekend too. He says maybe, knowing he won't. He crosses the street toward the dark bank instead of the bright dealership, and just keeps walking past both of them toward home. At his kitchen table that night, laptop open, he transfers $400 into an index fund, almost exactly what Derek's monthly truck payment costs. Derek calls a few days later, still excited about the truck, asking if he's thought any more about getting one too. He tells Derek he's good for now. It's not really a lie. He just means something different by good than Derek does. That weekend, while Derek posts photos of the new truck, he's at the same coffee shop with the same notebook, sketching out next year's numbers. His total now sits at $58,000. He checks it once before bed and doesn't think about it again until morning. A regular Tuesday morning. Bowl of cereal, small kitchen table, the same apartment he's had for years now with a few more dishes in the sink than usual. 2 pieces of paper sit in front of him, a loan payment notice that's due this week, and his quarterly investment statement. He pays the loan bill on his phone in about 10 seconds and moves on without giving it much thought. The investment statement is the one he actually pauses on. $148,000. His sister Rachel calls that afternoon, just checking in, and asks if he's doing all right money-wise. There's a worry in her voice that suggests she assumes the answer is no. He tells her he's fine, doesn't go into specifics, and asks about her kids instead. The conversation moves on naturally. He drives to work in the same car he's had since before this apartment, the engine making a familiar little rattle on cold mornings. At lunch, coworkers are comparing the new gadgets they just bought. He listens, nods along, and eats the same lunch he packed that morning. After work, he logs into his retirement account and bumps up his monthly contribution slightly, since the small raise from this year finally cleared. That evening he sits out on a tiny apartment balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the street below, nothing about the view or the apartment any different than it was years ago. To keep costs low, he's been splitting an apartment with a roommate named Chris for the past couple of years. Not because he needs to, but because the math just makes sense to him. Chris works a high-paying corporate job and walks out the door every morning with a sleek laptop bag and noise-canceling headphones around his neck. Chris just got a promotion and a bonus, and he's genuinely excited about it. He congratulates him and means it. After Chris leaves for work, he checks his phone. A wire transfer confirmation just went through. His portfolio total now reads $410,000. A few weeks later, Chris notices he's still driving the same old car and gently asks if everything's okay financially. He laughs and says the car still runs fine, no need to fix what isn't broken. Chris shrugs and lets it go. At work, a younger colleague jokes that he must be behind in life since he's never once mentioned buying a house. He laughs along with everyone else. That night he sits down with his laptop and reviews how his money is spread out. Some in index funds, some in bonds, a small portion in cash for emergencies. He calls his financial advisor for a quick 15-minute check-in, mostly just to confirm he's still on track for where he wants to be. He hangs up, closes the laptop, and goes to bed in the same room he's had since he moved in, no different from any other night. A headline flashes across his phone one morning. Markets are down sharply, the kind of drop that makes the news for days. He checks his portfolio. A significant chunk of value has disappeared on paper overnight. He stares at it for a moment, then closes the app. Derek calls in a bit of a panic, asking if he should sell everything before it gets worse. He tells him to take a breath and not touch anything. He reminds Derek that he's been through smaller dips before and that selling now would just lock in a loss that might not even be permanent. His own automatic contribution still goes through that month, same as always, buying more shares while prices are lower. A coworker gets laid off during the downturn and seems genuinely shaken. He sits with her during lunch and walks her through a simple budget to get through the next few months. Months later, the market recovers, the way it almost always eventually does. His portfolio is not just back to where it was, it's higher. The total now reads $780,000. He's still wearing the same kind of plain shirt he's worn for years. Derek, meanwhile, did sell during the panic and is still a little annoyed about it whenever the topic comes up. He doesn't bring up his own numbers. There's no reason to. The point was never to win an argument about it. An ordinary Wednesday morning, coffee in hand, he opens his portfolio app while waiting for the coffee maker to finish. The total reads $1,350,000. He looks at it for a second, smiles a little, and pours his coffee. He drives the same car to work, eats the same kind of lunch, and goes through the day exactly as he would have yesterday. At a work event that evening, a few colleagues talk openly about how stressed they are over their own finances and the cost of everything lately. He offers a small, practical tip about automating savings without ever mentioning what his own situation actually looks like. On the drive home, he passes the same billboard from years ago, the one for the premium credit card. It's faded now, half torn, advertising something else entirely. He thinks back to the night he sat in that coffee shop at 24, sketching a plan in a cheap notebook. It's been a long road since then. He calls his sister Rachel that night, just to check in the way he always does. He still doesn't mention the number. That evening's dinner is simple, pasta, a side salad, nothing fancy. He reviews his monthly budget the way he has for over 2 decades. He pulls out the same worn notebook from age 24, now nearly full, and adds one more line to it before closing it for the night. A family gathering at his sister's house. His cousin Tyler pulls into the driveway in a brand new truck, honking once just to make sure everyone notices. Inside, another relative is passing around vacation photos from a recent trip, everyone gathering around to look. An aunt pulls him aside gently and asks if he's doing okay financially, the kind of question asked with real concern, like she's worried he might be struggling. He smiles and tells her things are fine, that he doesn't need much these days. She pats his arm sympathetically and changes the subject. He doesn't mention that his portfolio crossed $2,100,000 last month. There's simply no reason to bring it up at a family dinner. Nobody at the table asks him for any kind of financial advice. The general assumption seems to be that the man in the plain sweater and the older car doesn't have much to offer on that front. After dinner, he helps clear the table without being asked, stacking plates and carrying them to the sink. He drives home that night in the same modest car that's been his for years now, the family gathering already fading into a pleasant, ordinary memory. The next day, he calls his financial advisor to start a conversation about estate planning, just to make sure everything is in order for the future. For the first time, he starts thinking seriously about what retirement might actually look like, and roughly how many more years of work that means. Mornings look a little slower now, but the routine is mostly the same. Same modest house, same simple breakfast, same quiet start to the day. He sits down with his advisor to review where things stand for retirement readiness, going through the numbers line by line. His total portfolio now reads $4,600,000. The advisor confirms he's well ahead of where he needs to be. He decides to keep working a few more years anyway, not because he needs the income, but because he genuinely likes having somewhere to be each morning. A younger coworker mentions he's struggling to save anything at all. He sits with him during a slow afternoon and walks through a few basic principles, the same ones from his old notebook. The coworker is genuinely surprised at how much he actually knows about this stuff. He just shrugs and says he's had a lot of years to think about it. A neighbor jokes one evening about his old car still running after all these years, asking when he's finally going to treat himself to something new. He laughs and says the car's never let him down, so there's no real reason to change it. The neighbor laughs too and heads back inside. That evening, sitting on the same kind of plain porch he's had for years, he thinks back over the whole stretch of road that got him here. He starts sketching, just casually, what retirement might actually look like. A small list of places he'd like to see, nothing extravagant. His final day at work. The desk is mostly cleared out already, just a few personal items left to pack up. The same desk lamp he's had for decades still sits beside the keyboard, a little worn at the base but still working fine. Coworkers stop by to say goodbye, a few cards, a small cake in the break room. Nobody in that room has any real idea what his actual financial picture looks like. He drives home one last time as a working man, in the same humble car he's kept running for longer than most people keep a phone. At home, he opens his final portfolio statement before officially stepping into retirement. $8,900,000. He calls his sister Rachel and, for the first time in his life, actually tells her the real number. There's a long pause on the other end of the line, and then she just says she had absolutely no idea. He pulls out the original notebook from age 24, the cover nearly falling apart now, every page filled front to back. That weekend he takes a quiet walk past the same coffee shop where it all started, the same window table still sitting empty by the glass. He looks exactly the way he's always looked. Same plain clothes. Same kind of unremarkable car parked nearby. And for the first time, completely, permanently, financially free.